The growing calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on Sunday.
This is about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Guns up, giddy up. Good morning, it's Friday. It's Friday. Oh, goodness gracious. I just tried to adjust my chair. Just micro adjust my chair and it shot down. Maybe it's because I weigh too much. But we have a live show for you today. Today's show brought to you by rangerup.com. Promo code Eric Tansey, all caps, all one word. Head over to Ranger Up and get your patriotism, your military motivational t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies. Get over there and get them today. Releasing this week the mandatory fun day line. We got just a bunch of more stuff going on over at Ranger Up. So head over there right now. Use the promo code Eric Tansey, all caps, all one word. And just for poops and giggles, to support a local law enforcement company through the holiday season, Sheepdog Holsters, making custom holsters, whatever you want. I've got my Pig Latin 1911 outside the waistband holster on right now. Love it. It's got the Pig Latin logo. For those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, welcome. Pig Latin, A Seriously Funny True Story, is a book that I've written. You can see the book behind me if you're on the YouTubes. Published by Simon & Schuster. It's available just about anywhere you can buy a book. Hudson's, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, Amazon, wherever. The audiobook's also available. Read by myself, directed by Travis Tunn, and produced by Noel White. Those guys are all best in the biz, and so it's a really great book. So I always use the promo code Eric Tansey. It's all one word though, not a space there. Abby Ellsworth on being a police officer. Eric Tansey, all one word, all capital letters. Obviously, if you want to see me play Merman, you can go to Ranger Up's YouTube and the Awakening video with mandatory fun day. All the big influencers: Kagan Dunlap, Viva La Vargas, Jack Mandeville, Tyler Gray plays the sniper. He's an actor from the movie, from the TV series SEAL Team, and a Delta Force operator who was hurt. It's a really funny, the Awakening video relaunching of Ranger Up. So if that is, if that's your style, head over to rangerup.com, pick you out some shirts and use the promo code Eric Tansey, all caps, all one word, Eric Tansey, ERICTANSEY. Get you a little discount. I don't know what the discount is right now, but they keep changing it on me. Sometimes it's 15%, sometimes it's 10%. I think for Veterans Day it was 15, but it's we'll see what's going on. I know there's some Black Friday stuff coming up, but if you want to get your Christmassy Patriot shirts, I would order now so that you can have them for the whole month of December. I think a lot of people wait and get the Christmas style shirts on Black Friday, but then they don't come till the second or third week of December. And then, like, what, you get to wear it for a week? I would order now, save your Christmas gift shopping for Black Friday. But if it's a shirt you personally want to wear through the holidays, I would order it right now, so that you can have it for the entirety of the holiday season. Again, I said this is a live chat, so I have to recognize some of the people in the chat. So we've got Nightkin from across the pond, Bosco Wilbury, our Armory Knight, Michael August. What's going on, Michael? M, just the letter M. Always love it when M is in the chats. So I appreciate all you guys being here. And of course, as it continues to grow, I'll shop you. I'm just not going to keep scrolling up and up and up. So. All right. Today we're talking, I always say it's probably going to be a shorter show because there's not a lot to talk about, but then we ended up going for the full hour anyway. And that's usually thankful because of the questions in the chats or as people bring up other things. We have Santana True Crime in the chats, and great podcast. And they're covering a live case right now. And I can't remember the name of that case, but a big case has been a big deal in the news. So it's cool to see them in the chats. Nico the Greco, Rubber Tire. You don't have to shout me out. I just want to say, what's up, brother? And stay safe out there. Well, thank you so much, Rubber Tire. I really appreciate that. Also, I hope the audio sounds good today. I did not do an audio check before the show. Because I was studying for the show and had a lot going on this morning. So hopefully we sound good this morning. All right, let's jump into today's case, which is, did a former Capitol police officer plant the J6 pipe bomb? If you have followed me for any amount of time. I love the news, right? I love reporting on the news. I don't know that I like reporting on the news as much as I like to do the journalism. I enjoy calling people, interviewing people. I like tracking down the evidence. I don't know if I mean, I think that in itself is my talent. My talent is not regurgitating what I've learned or articulating what I've learned. I'm not the best of articulators. I really enjoyed when I did Fox News. I loved it. I loved doing it. I don't do Fox News anymore. FAWKES News, by the way, Guy Fawkes, FAWKES News. I don't do Fox News anymore because one, the burden of delivering news on a person like me, the burden, the internal burden is insane because I don't do any of this to be liked. I like to be liked. Don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem being the bad guy though, either. I was a cop. Obviously, I want people to like me, but I have no problem with an entire neighborhood hating me if I know what I'm doing is just and correct. Everybody can hate me. Justice will be served. Right? And that's usually the case. You have all these people rallying around somebody who is an absolute scumbag. I'll give you an example. This weekend, I was at a skateboarding event and there was this very sad prostitute in the middle of the day, in the middle of the town square where this event was being held. And she was just wearing a bra. She had taken her pants off and was bare bottom naked from the waist down and took a shit. And everybody saw this and nobody called 911. Nobody really cared. That's big city life for you though, right? There were two ginormous black males standing over her. She was a white female. Now, you might say, well, maybe those guys were protecting her. I saw them do a hand-to-hand with her, and then I saw her go from being somewhat okay to being absolutely fucked out of her mind, drug-wise. Where she was gnawing on things and talking to herself. So I think the evidence was more clear that these men are her handlers. Everybody in the park would be, if I went and arrested any of those men as a cop, the crowd would have taken their side, even though the evidence, and it was pretty clear to me that those men were there to do their harm. Big city folks really enjoy taking the side of the criminals, but it doesn't matter. I didn't do the job to be liked. And my wife and I had a long conversation after this because I said, this is big city life. If this happened in the country, nobody would tolerate it. They would want to go and question the two men. Why are you standing over this woman like that? Why is she drugged out of her mind right now? She's not crazy. It's obvious she's on drugs right now. And you two are the ones standing over her. And you have not left her side in hours. We're talking 5 hours. These men never left her. Followed her to the bathroom, followed her back from the bathroom. Anybody that approached her, these two men were there. But nobody pushed the limits. Nobody wanted to. And my wife was like, why doesn't somebody call 911? I mean, she just flashed everybody in the park. She just got naked and pooped and nobody cares. I said, because city people don't. It's a virtue signal. See, if the cops get involved, they will take the side of the two men that are standing over her, and they will, yell profanities at the police, tell the police that they weren't doing anything wrong, to leave her alone. If the cops go and approach her, they're going to all take her side and say, oh, she's on drugs and shame on you. The cops will never win. And so the cops they know that, and they don't care anymore. They don't care anymore. So a lot of virtue signaling going on. I say all that to say I don't care if I'm liked or I'm not liked. I want to present the news objectively. And so any given day, I was a left-wing nut or a right-winged racist. It didn't matter how I presented the news. If I presented the news from my findings and the evidence that I gathered and I put together from my perspective, which doesn't mean it's right. Just because it's my perspective doesn't mean it's right. But if I present you to what I found, the evidence that was presented to me and my perspective of that, my perception of that evidence, and I presented it to you honestly, I was either a left-wing nut or a right-winged racist. And I could watch that show never grow. And I could see people with insane titles to their news pieces, presenting evidence that even I know was not real evidence, that it had already been disputed. It had already been, somebody had already disproven it, but they will run the story regardless, and their numbers will continue to grow, and they are rewarded for that. I have a choice to make. Just like in social media. We see all these meme pages that blow up, right? They get 100,000 followers rather quickly, right? Because everybody likes a good meme. However, a lot of these memes are mean. So what's more important? 100,000 followers, but you're mean. And also nobody knows who you are, which I think is extremely weird. I just lost lights. My lights just went out. I apologize, guys. Might be a little dark here for a minute. That threw me off. So do we be mean and make 100,000 followers? The same goes with the news. Do I do this outlandish reporting that garners likes and views, or do I do the right thing and report it the way that I see fit, and then be called or be labeled one way or the other? Sorry, I'm going to fix these lights to I'm just going to go dark for this, for the last of this. So I'm sorry about that. And I just spilled water all over the place. I'm a train wreck this morning. Lights go out and then I lose it. At least we have the internet. I don't know what's going on with the lights, but I'll say all this. Okay. So I got out of doing Fox News, one, because it took up so much of my time because I wanted to do it correctly. I wanted to do it right. When I got the position over at Ranger Up, and I got, and my book deal came out and all these things happened, something had to go away. And although Fox was the fastest growing show on the network and we were doing really good with it, and, most of our Patreon content was coming from Fox News, FAWKS News. The problem with that is that if I don't give that 100% of my time and I don't track down all the leads that I have to track down, I don't feel comfortable with just giving you regurgitated news and being a part of the problem. In 2025, everybody has a podcast. Everybody has a social media page. Everybody is lobbying to be more audacious than the next. They want to be first and they want to be the most audacious and they want to have that bombshell. I don't know that bombshell means anything to me anymore. Special alert doesn't mean anything to me anymore because it's used so widely that I'm not sure what's bombshell and what's not. Also, we're in an era where every contact and every source wants to go unnamed. And so how do we provide sources if they're confidential sources? And every source, then we could just make whatever we want up at this point and say a confidential source told me. So I say all that because today's show, it pertains to law enforcement officers. And I'm kind of going back to my glory days of FAWKES, where I've gotten to do a little bit of journalism and I made some phone calls and I wanted to get this right. And in an era where everyone just puts information out there to be first, whether they care if they're right or wrong. And also at the same time, we're also in a time where it is cooler to watch people fail or for people to be guilty than it is for anything else. So if we can find somebody to tear down, let's do that. Very few stories. If you remember back in the early 2000s, all the hype and all the rage was watching people be successful. All the blogs you watched were people becoming entrepreneurs, people chasing their dreams. We think about companies like Dixon Flannel, right? DIXXON Flannel. They blew up. I remember following them. I was having conversations with Danny when he was still living in an apartment in California and was hand sewing pieces of fabric that he was buying from different parts of the world, trying to even invent it. I'm still friends with his ex-wife. We still chat here and there, but I got into following Dixon, and so did everybody else, because it was literally, well, I forgot what it was now, but it was like $3 in a dream or something like that. That was his big thing, that he had $3 in his account and he had a dream, and now he's extremely wealthy and everything. Bosco says, I have got a few of their flannels. Yeah, I've got their original. I have one of the very first, the OG original flannels that they ever made. And they used to send flannels to my kids on Christmas, but I follow them from day one. And, guys like Gary Vaynerchuk coming up on Wine Library TV, where his YouTube was even worse than mine because my lights have gone out. He didn't have any lights or anything. We had Jocko, those were the early days of when Jocko was coming out in 2000, maybe 10, something like that. Ranger Up 2005, a big part of Ranger Up and what we're bringing back with Ranger Up is that nostalgia. When we had the big team meeting, I said, what made you follow or buy Ranger Up back in 2005? And for me, it was watching this entrepreneurial dream. Nobody had made veteran specific or patriot specific attire ever in the history. You could not go out and buy, some kind of insanely funny veteran style t-shirt with our type of humor on it. It did not exist until Ranger Up showed up. They didn't have grunt style. They didn't have 9-line. They didn't have Article 15. None of those. So watching Nick start this company, and again, the shipping of shirts wasn't as cool as it is now. Podcasters and everything, that didn't exist. Remember, YouTube didn't come out till 2006. So a lot of these things, this was all very entrepreneurial. This was all very, and we were wanting to watch the rise and the fame of all of these different individuals who were making it. Article 15 came next. Everybody loved to get on board with that. Black Rifle Coffee. How many people just love to watch that start from a coffee company that started in Afghanistan on the hood of a Humvee to explode into what it is now? Fast forward to 2025, 20 years later, and now what excites us is watching those who we watch succeed. We want to watch them fail. And we give them zero grace. Zero grace. And we spread things that are completely untrue. I've got a friend right now who they are commenting on every comment that he cheated on his wife. Well, he didn't cheat on his wife. I'm not even going to tell the real story of what happened. But this guy is took a noble high road and decided not to talk bad about his wife. And so the rumor mill went wild. And now the general consensus is nobody knows how they got there, that he cheated on his wife. And so now all these comments on all of his posts are like, oh, this guy cheats on his wife. He's a piece of shit. Da, da, da. They don't even know the real person. They don't even know the truth. They don't even know half of the truth. They don't even know a quarter of the truth. But in their minds, this guy's a cheater. And they have no problem throwing that out there because maybe they saw it on the internet. Right? That's where we're at in 2025. When I did FAWKES News, it was to thwart all that. I wanted to not be first. I wanted to wait. I wanted to see. I wanted to follow the evidence. I wanted to see where things would lead me. And I wanted to try to do it honestly. And I'm not going to say I got it right 100% of the time because I'm a human being. And human beings don't get things right 100% of the time. But I went about trying to get that information as honestly as I could. Now, it brings me to today's point. If you have information that's going to ruin somebody's life, I think you have a moral obligation to be right. Not first, not for any other reason that you might have. And I'll give you some examples of reasons that you might want to do this. But you have a moral obligation to be right before you ruin their lives. Putting out circumstantial evidence that you know is misleading to be right is also wrong. And there's some people going through it. And listen, they've spent their whole lives tearing other veterans down. And now those veterans are tearing them apart as well. And evidence is coming forth. I'm still not getting involved. And people say, well, why not? And I said, because I don't want to put information out unless I know it to be true. Whenever I put that out, if it's going to ruin somebody's life forever, I will make sure that's right. I would be the same way. If I was a vigilante, it'd be really, really hard for me to go out and do vigilantism because I would need to know with beyond doubt, beyond a shadow of doubt, beyond, I would hold myself to the highest standard before I commit any kind of vigilante act. And so I would probably do very few because I would need overwhelming evidence that showed that they did it before I would do something on that, before I do something wrong. Not how I feel, not how the public feels. And right now we are in a time where it feels good, right? So this group, they screwed me. They screwed me horribly. They ran my name through the dirt. They tried to crush my entire business. They said horrible things about me in very professional settings, which thank God made them look bad and not me, because people knew me and knew that that's just not true, and that's great. But they tried their best to come to hurt me, because that's what they do. They hurt other veterans. That's what they want. And I cut ties with them. And that's great. I wish nothing more than the allegations that are coming out of them to be true. Because I'll be honest with you, it would feel really good to be like, yeah, I knew these guys were dirtbags, and here's the proof. I'm still not going to do it, though, until I know 100%. And even then, I'm probably still not going to do it, because I'm not in the business of ruining people's lives. That doesn't make me happy. I wish it right now, but then the minute you do it, you're probably not going to feel that great. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can get this person over here to fix this microphone. Sorry about that. I just had someone walk by that could probably fix this light for me, so I'm calling them into my office. All right. So it doesn't matter what you want to feel or how you feel. If you're going to present the news, it should not be based on your feeling. Should not be, it shouldn't be. It should be based on the evidence. I don't mind perception of evidence. I have this light go out, and so this light, I don't know why this light went out, but if we can center this light, that'll make me look pretty. And then like turn it up full blast. No, you're gonna have to center it. You're gonna have to pick it up and physically move it, or it's just gonna. Yep, that's really good. And then just brighten that up. There we go. Oh, that's nice and warm. Oh, you went, no, that's too bright. Bring it down right there. That'll be fine. Thank you. So let's jump into it, right? When you have evidence and your perception of the evidence, let's go there. Let's start with perception of the evidence. Okay, we can receive evidence, and then we can have different perspectives on the evidence, and that's where a jury comes into play. Sometimes evidence isn't clear-cut. It's your perception of the evidence. Let me give you an example. O.J. Simpson trial. Let's just use that one as a loose. I'm not going down in the trial. This isn't news. Okay. This is just an example. Okay. We have a knife. If I collect the knife and the knife's got blood on it and fingerprints on it, and then I pass that knife off to my buddy in the room who has holding an evidence bag, and I say, hold this evidence in this bag. And I put it in the bag, and that guy processes the evidence, but I did not do a form of a transfer in custody. It means that I picked this knife up and I handed him because we were at the same place at the same time. I might perceive that evidence, I might perceive as a jury member, the evidence of that just to be like, well, common sense says that I don't need to do a transfer of custody because we were all there when it was found together. Whereas somebody else might say like, oh, that's nefarious. There should have been a transfer of custody, and therefore we have to rule it out. So the evidence is there, right? The evidence is clear cut, but our perceptions of the evidence are different. We're in the same room. We're together. You're holding an evidence bag. I pick up this cube. I place it in the bag. You holding the bag, put that into evidence and do a report. I do not do the report. I didn't do a transfer of custody because I didn't feel like I needed to do it from here to here. Transfer of custody is if I pick this up, I walk it into the next building over, and then I hand it to you. Then we need a transfer of custody. Maybe we don't need one if we're together when we found it and one's holding the bag. Does that make sense? The evidence doesn't change. The knife was there. There was a bag. All those things are the same, But one person might seem that evidence, you can't use that evidence because you didn't do a transfer of custody, etc. Might be a poor example, but you get where I'm talking about perception. Also, I've said on the show 1,000 times, perception isn't always reality. And that is extremely important in journalism. And it's extremely important if you're going to be a free thinker. Perception is not always reality. I know we want it to be, but in every single case that we bring up, whether you're on the far right, the far left, middle, whatever, our own biases, we cannot, everything can't just be perception. Let me give you another example. I walk into a house, Santana True Crime, Cameron Santana, the host, has a knife in somebody's chest. There's a knife in somebody's chest. He's sitting over them. He's covered in blood. His hands are covered in blood. I don't get to arrest him for murder, right? The perception is he murdered him. He's standing over the body. He's got the bloody knife in his hand. When the reality was he came into the house. There was somebody that had a knife in their chest and he was trying to give them CPR and he's trying to render them aid. The perception is bad, but the reality is far different. And we have to be very careful when we're judging somebody based on perception. So I saw this case come out from Blaze. Did a former Capitol police officer plant the J6 bomb? Of course, the headlines from Blaze, very audacious. A lot of the other podcasters out there are, big twist in the case, blah, 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 blah. And I don't have a problem. I don't necessarily have a problem with Blaze TV at all. Matter of fact, Glenn Beck and all those people have helped me out personally a lot. They were extremely instrumental in all the rescue that we did during Hurricane Helene. They provided fuel for the helicopters. They provided yurts and generators. They sent a team down and I gave them a tour of the areas and said exactly what we needed. I think they donated over $1 million. They helped out with this orphanage, getting it rebuilt and re-going. They do so much. I have no problems with them. What I have a problem with in general, and not just from Blaze TV, is this problem that we have as society where everyone is guilty and you are hung from the proverbial societal noose, that society is going to tie it up and hang you. And now we have a former Capitol police officer whose name has been doxxed. Where she lived has been doxxed. Everything about her, everybody is talking about her, and we don't even know even a quarter of the truth. Could you imagine for a moment being a police officer, showing up to work, knowing that you're doing a good job, and somehow some investigative journalist thinks that your forensic gate matches the gate of a capital city bomber and puts this out as news without an entire full-length investigation or anything out, and your name is out there and everything, and you didn't do it? Now, I'm not saying she didn't do it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that Blaze TV did a bad job at journalism. Not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is Blaze TV doesn't know. I don't know. And nobody really knows yet. And it's already started for this young lady. She's whole life is changed forever because of the perception of evidence. And I'm going to go through the evidence, and it doesn't look good. It really doesn't look good. But I don't think it's enough. I don't think the evidence as it's provided is enough. I think it's circumstance. And so if it's not enough, it doesn't matter because it's too late for her. It's too late for her. Her picture's blasted all over the place. This poor person, look, it's going around everywhere. She's a soccer player. She's a police officer. She was horrifically injured playing soccer, and she had to get rehabilitated, and she was out to chase her dream of being a police officer. I think she's married to a sergeant now. She's been a cop for 4 years, and everybody hates her. On the right, everybody hates her. They don't know if it's true. They don't know if she's guilty, and they have utter hate for her. So much so that she is under a protection detail. They're even using the protection detail as like, well, if she didn't do it, why shouldn't you? Because you guys are crazy. Look at the Tim Kennedy derangement syndrome. Look at my friend going through it on social media right now where people are accusing him of cheating on his wife, and it's just not true. We are ruining people's lives at the convenience of social media because maybe it feels good to us. So I want to go through the evidence as they provide it. Again, it's all perception, but I have to talk about it because everybody is talking about it. And I feel like, I cover a lot of cases, and there's a lot of cops that we break down here, and it doesn't look good. But in the end, when we look at all of the facts, when we look at the totality of the circumstances, then we do see that they are innocent of their charges, or they didn't do this, but they were guilty by the public. And so we can't change that. We look at the Sergeant Mattingly case, the Breonna Taylor case. Perfect example of that. Sergeant Mattingly did nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing wrong. Not by policy, not by anything. And yet, I think they said 38% of the country still thinks that he shot and killed Breonna Taylor in her bed while she was sleeping. When we know that all the evidence shows that that's not true. It's not even a perception of evidence. There's evidence that shows that it's not true. And a jury unanimously voted like, yeah, no, we see all the, we all agree that that you did not kill Breonna Taylor in her bed at night. Right. Daniel Holtzclaw is another big one. He was guilty by the media because the media wanted him to be guilty. And so they took circumstantial evidence and manipulated it in a way to convince the public that he was guilty, even though the evidence was something completely different. Holtzclaw, in my opinion, is 100% innocent. I have found zero evidence that he's guilty. But it's the perception of innocence and the retardation of evidence, as in he did search one of the females that made the complaint, the initial complaint. He did search her, and he had trace DNA all over the place. And he even said, and we even know because his fiance at the time backed it all up, was that he searched her on his way home. He went home and he took off his clothes. There was trace DNA on his belt and trace DNA around his zipper. There was zero DNA on his penis. There was zero fluid or DNA on his underwear. If I touch you and I go home and change my clothes, that trace DNA will easily end up on my belt or anywhere. They also didn't say that the trace DNA was on his sleeve. They didn't tell the jury. They didn't explain that. All they said was that he had DNA, her DNA on his crotch, and they left it at that. When we know that that's not true. That's not what he said. That's what the media told you, but that's not what was said in the trial. Trial said it was trace DNA, which trace DNA can be from a handshake. There was also 700 other pieces of trace DNA from other people around his belt and his crotch area, because that's a place that you manipulate quite a bit. We hold on to our belts. So you think about every hand that you ever shake, then you touch your belt, you're going to have trace DNA. So again, that's the perception of evidence. I tell you that he had her DNA on his crotch. Your perception is he's guilty. The reality is it's trace DNA, and he could have just shaken her hand and then went into the bathroom. Doesn't look good. Perception doesn't look good, but the perception doesn't make him guilty. So I want to tell you why they think that this former Capitol police officer might be a suspect. But I also want to be very clear, and I've spent 30 minutes out of the 34 minutes I've been live here trying to explain to you that nobody knows if she's guilty or not. And I would not just go all in that you hate this woman and that she's guilty of anything and put your conspiracy caps away for a moment, because this is a human being. And if she did not do it, there's no repercussions for you. It doesn't matter what you say about her, what you publish on the social media webs. You're not going to feel anything from it. Even if she gets proven innocent, you'll never go back and change your stance. You'll never go back and change your opinions, your comments on social media to other people. It won't even matter to you because there is no consequence for you. And that's part of the problem. Nobody's getting punched in the mouth over this stuff. But for her, the consequence is that a million dumbasses will never go back and find out what the truth was. And so she will forever be guilty even if she was innocent. And we have to presume innocent until proven guilty. And we've gotten so far away from that in 10 years since the Ferguson case. We've gotten so far away that everybody now is guilty, and then you have to prove your innocence. And that's not how it's supposed to be. St. Tan True Crime says at the trial they lied and said it was vaginal fluid. They did. That was they misspoke, right? One of the attorneys misspoke on that. And again, it never really got clarified either. They didn't clear it up for the public. We tried to. A lot of other people did. Megan, the journalist, what was her name? Forgot her name now, but she did a great job of exposing that stuff. All right, here we go. So this whole thing starts with the pipe bomb. On the DNC, and I covered this in length since January, basically 7th. This was one of the more fun things. I got some really close contacts in and out of Washington, D.C., Capitol police officers, guys that I'm friends with to this day that I have spoke with about this case. And I've done a lot of research on the January 6th riots, insurrection, whatever you want to call it. I don't think there is an argument. I think it is funny. I shouldn't say funny. I think it is wild. I think it is wild that questioning the J6 pipe bomb is a far-right fixation. If you go back to the New York Times, any of these other big giant media outlets, you will see headlines like far-right's fixation on January 6th pipe bomb. Why is the far right so infatuated with the pipe bomb? You'll see a lot of articles that try to gaslight you into thinking if you are concerned about a pipe bomb on January 6th, that you are far right. That is gaslighting 101. I don't know how everybody, left and right, are worried about this because there was a pipe bomb at the RNC and the DNC. And if we really want to talk about terrorism, what tearing down a statue, is that terrorism? What's more terroristic? Tearing down a statue or putting two pipe bombs out in the grass next to the RNC and the DNC? You have to choose one. Tell me which one. Would it be A, tearing down a satanic statue and being arrested and charged and going to prison for a hate crime, or planning a pipe bomb? Which one would you consider to be terrorism? The gaslighting is insane here, because why are we not all extremely concerned that a terrorist, let's not sugarcoat it. I'm also not being hyperbolic. If I'm being hyperbolic, let me know. I think it's pretty wild. I think it's pretty crazy that on American soil, during an election process, the biggest process in our country, that there were two pipe bombs, one at the RNC, one at the DNC. I think that is terrifying. I think it is absolutely terrifying. I don't consider far right or far left to want to know what terrorists planted bombs at our nation's biggest event, on our nation's biggest day. That leaves in question, why does the media want to gaslight everyone? Why does the propaganda machine want everyone to feel stupid about being concerned about the J6 bombs? By the way, don't you think it's a little crazy that somebody could plant not one, but 2 bombs and they still don't have an answer, that our federal government, I'm not talking about independent journalists, I'm talking about the FBI, the CIA, the Secret Service, the Capitol Police, the Metro Police, that nobody has information on this person who walked all around DC, went across the Black Caucus. Because if you remember, they were going to plant a bomb there first. And then they moved that bomb over to the DNC. What made them move the bomb? Also think it's very strange that the timers on the bombs, both of them, failed exactly 20 minutes or 15 minutes prior to the event scheduled, as if to be its own manifesto. And we know how much the propaganda machine loves a manifesto. I think it's wild, because I don't think people who can make, like, in my entire life as a police officer, I worked, a lot of homicides, a lot of shootings, a lot of gang retaliations. Never once in my entire career of working all those homicides did I ever find a manifesto. There was never a manifesto, ever, not one. There wasn't stuff on social media about it either. So I just find it odd that when you have these big, high-profile cases, there's always a manifesto. I think that's kind of crazy that they have a manifesto. So here we go. We know for a fact that Nancy Pelosi, who is in charge, they begged and pleaded. I've already done an entire show showing you all the letters, all the memos, begging Nancy Pelosi for more officers, to bring in everybody off duty and to bring in Metro, DC Metro. I've talked to Capitol Police officers. They said that that was the first time that they had ever been denied requests. First time ever. It's the Capitol. They have protests every day. Every day they bring in other people all the time. It's never an issue. For the biggest event, one of the most controversial events that's ever going to be taking place on the lawn, it was denied not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 times. Nancy Pelosi herself, along with Chuck Schumer, towards the end, all were denied personally by her. And why? Well, I think we know the reason why. It's because they wanted an insurrection to happen. They wanted violence and chaos. They needed it because they had already had the summer of love that made the Democratic Party look terrible. All the burnings of all the buildings. And so this was a gaslighting way of saying, like, see, you guys do it too. You guys are insurrection. You guys are worse than us. You're worse than we are. I really do. I mean, I really think, and that, again, my perception of this is that there is no other excuse. There is no evidence of why you would turn down Metro PD or anybody else or the National Guard. I can see if she didn't want the National Guard, but I cannot see why she wouldn't want Metro PD. I cannot see why she didn't want to bring in all the off-duty officers. Everybody, mandatory, got to be here. We need every hand on deck, right? Extremely short-staffed. And then 15 minutes before all the things, their staff of, I remember when we covered this story, I think it was like 120 officers or something like that. Or no, it was like 600 and something officers, but like 120 officers had to be diverted to work on the first pipe bomb, which then left like 500 cops uniformed. And again, with, over 1 million people or, upwards of 1 million people, you have 500 cops trying to deal with it. And then you had 120 go take care of this bomb. And by the way, it's like when you're taking care of a bomb, you got to have the bomb squad. Then you have to have the outer perimeter. Then you have to have the streets blocking off. So it's a big deal, right? And then you have all these cops that are on all these intersections. And so they were running out of cops very quickly. And then they had the second bomb. And that just depleted everybody. And so as I remember talking to Capitol police officers saying, like, why were the barricades moved? And they were saying because Hire was screaming at us on the radio that, listen, we need to save and preserve what we can. We need to de-escalate, move the barricades. These cops weren't in on it. I know for a fact that these Capitol police officers, I'm still friends with them to this day. I've broke bread with them. I've had coffee with them. I've sat down with them. I've hung out with them. I'll tell you. I'll vouch for them. They were not privy to any insider information. Not to say they weren't used, but they didn't know. They weren't nefarious characters playing something out. They were doing exactly what they were told. In the heat of chaos, when maybe you're with 6 guys and in front of you is 100,000 people and somebody says, move the barricades, you probably be like, hey, I'll fucking move the barricades. You know what I mean? Like you're not really going to argue with it, but it does stand. The fact is why were they put in that position anyway? Everything about the pipe bombs is sketch. The fact that their TV screens were like from like 1970, the CCTV screens, like nobody has that anymore. Like that's not real. And we know that's not real. So that's kind of crazy. I get it. I think the timers and the bombs being so intricate, like you have the explosive, you have the container, you have the fuse, you have the timer. It's a very complex, well-working machine. But this complex bomb maker that was able to make it all around DC and evade any kind of detection of any kind wasn't smart enough to use dry black powder, or that both timing mechanisms just happened to fail in manifesto style 15 minutes before, and that these bombs were found at the exact time to create chaos 15 minutes before, like the peak time, like all of that. We know that this was orchestrated. I am not debating with anyone that the J6 pipe bomb and the JC was not. I will not fault you or call you far right wing or conspiracy crazy. I won't do any of those things. I 100% agree with you that this was an orchestrated, planned out, Gretchen Whitmer style Fed-napping that took place. I don't dispute that. But what I will dispute is that it's very dangerous to call out a girl, a police officer, and you don't have all of the evidence yet. Do I want it to be true? Because I want to get to the bottom of it, sure. I do. Maybe she did it. Maybe the perception in this case is reality. Maybe it is. But what kind of person are you? If you were going to take what evidence that you have, what little evidence you have, and you are going to start running this woman through the ground and wishing death, wishing harm, wishing nothing but the worst for her, but you don't know beyond reasonable doubt that she's guilty of this or not. I want to play this clip from Newsmax because this is coming from Kyle Sefram, and he was working on the case, and I don't discredit him either. I have a problem with the whole thing. I have a problem with it. Like, if this is an investigation, then let's keep it tight-lipped until we know. And I get it that Blaze might have put this out because they're trying to, I think at the end of the day, personally, before I play this clip, this is my personal opinion on this. I think we want the nail in the coffin so bad for Nancy Pelosi that we'll throw out anything right now because they think it's time sensitive, that they're in a panic, that they really want to hammer Nancy Pelosi. There's nobody. I dislike Nancy Pelosi. I've heard enough about her my whole life. I've done all the research. I've read the memos. My perception of Nancy Pelosi is I think she's a terrible person. Personally, I believe that in my heart. As well as all the Capitol police officers that I've talked to, they will say one thing in certain: this all could have prevented had she had given us the resources that we needed. A lot of this could have been prevented. I think that's where Blaze's heart is like, we've got to keep this in the media. We got to put pressure on them. Here's the thing, though. You're putting pressure on them at the sake of potentially destroying this woman's life. By the way, I've talked to Capitol Police officers. They say this girl was squared away. They say that she didn't come into the department. She was basically a rookie. She was 4 years in at this time. She didn't come from anywhere prior. She came straight from college. So she was on the line. There wouldn't have been time for her to be manipulated. How would they have known she's the one? How would they have said, like, oh, this is the girl? She hadn't worked any like kind of crazy details. She hadn't done any detective work. She hadn't been in an opportunity where they could snatch her up, where she's proven herself to be on the Democrat side. She wasn't part of any kind of a group. She was a squared away officer who everybody liked. They didn't have, unlike Dunn, where you got a mixed bag here where people hate him. And, people say that he was hyper political. I haven't gotten any of that about this girl. So where would they have come in if this far right wing, if somebody would have come in and tried to convince her to do this, how would they have known she's the girl for them? Now, I don't have that answer. Maybe there is an answer out there. I'm not saying that isn't a possibility, but I'm saying is that's a pretty far-fetched thing. I also think it's we talk about the gate forensics. Guys, like forensic gate analysis is, it would be laughed out of court. I'm going to read this really quickly from the royalsociety.org, which is a scientific institution out of Scotland that provides scientific findings. This is an older article, but forensic gait analysis, the direct visual comparison of two or more video recordings to establish whether they are of the same individual or different individuals based on the gait pattern alone, is a relatively new form of evidence in the criminal courts. It's underpinning, and this is for the UK, so in the UK criminal courts. But let me say, let me just go through these bullet points. Right? One, there is no evidence to support the assertion that gait is unique within current or foreseeable limitations of measurements used in forensic gait analysis. So it's not like a fingerprint. So when you go on a news outlet and you say that forensic gait analysis is like your fingerprint, that's not correct information. That's misleading the evidence. What you can say is they use forensic gait analysis, which is not proved. There's no published studies on forensic gait forensic gait analysis that can be used in court to prove that it works. There is no standardized methodology for analysis and reporting. There's no credible database currently that permits assessment of the frequency of either normal or abnormal gait characteristics. And maybe I'm, there's a lot of things I don't know because I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to be one, but I will tell you, I walk different after a day of jujitsu. I'm hunched over, my back hurts, my right knee sucks. Sometimes my left ankle sucks. So, I don't know. Does my gait change? I would like to know how that works. And again, from the Blaze TV, all the sources and all the experts, none of them are named and none of the studies are named behind them. So it's just like, we don't even know if there was an actual study done. Now, I trust the Blaze, I trust the Glenn Beck crew again, because I enjoy those people, but at the end of the day, if everything is confidential informants and that they use these teams and they're not putting the names or the references, I don't think that there's receipts. And I don't feel comfortable with burying or running a story that buries a Capitol Police woman when we're talking about your own private investigation led by Steve Baker, who was arrested and pardoned by Trump, but he was arrested on J6. So there's some bias there. There's some desperation there. I don't know that I'm going to hate this woman for that. I don't think there's enough. And I hope that you guys are there with me. Once we know we're wrong, we can hate her all we want. I said the same thing about Uvalde. But I think it's wild that this woman's picture is posted everywhere with hyperbolic titles as if she's the one that did it. Let me play you this from Newsmax.
Ultimately, in the investigation, you were an FBI special agent during this time trying to track down the J6 bomber. So tell me about this report. What's going through your mind, and do you think it's accurate?
My first instinct is that it is accurate, and the reason is because the odds of the two sort of things I'm going to tell you in a second here being linked up after all this time, they're astronomically small. It doesn't make any sense to me. What happened is on somewhere in the first week after January 6th, my surveillance team was put on a person of interest. This was in the Falls Church area of Virginia. And the story that we got, and I've gotten thousands of briefings on cases that we worked. My team worked for multiple years doing all kinds of different cases all around the country. But I don't remember ever getting such a clear-cut path on why we were going after an unknown subject in the way that we were. And the story went is that the FBI had tracked the pipe bomber that you see, that everyone has seen walking around D.C. on all these kind of grainy images, wearing that hoodie, that they went to a metro station, that they used a metro card in D.C. to travel out to Northern Virginia, and then exited the metro station out in Falls Church with the same metro card. So that makes sense. You put it in the turnstile, you get it out the turnstile on the way out. And that the person that bought that metro card was exactly the same person that was registered to the vehicle that picked up the person in the hoodie. And so that was the story we got, and we went to the address of that person. And I sat outside of that house for about 2 days, and we got background on the individual, Air Force, kind of grainy on that piece of it. We got a name, we got an address, we got a date of birth, et cetera, et cetera. We got photographs. And so we sat and waited for this individual. Now, it turns out, after 5 years, my friend Steve Baker, who's an investigative journalist over at Blaze, has been running this thing down. Now, people need to realize Steve Baker has been in this since the beginning because he was actually arrested for his participation as a journalist at January 6th. And then thankfully, the folks at Blaze actually hired him on and let him continue this. The FBI arrested him, put him in cuffs, put him in a belly chain, and walked him out in front of a magistrate judge to be read charges and did an initial appearance. So he's gone through the entire system, and he ended up pleading guilty on the idea that hopefully Trump would pardon him, which did happen. So about 2 days ago, he called me up and he told me, we've got the gate analysis, it's 94%. We've got the human analysis going on top of this, and they peg it closer to 98%.
And it's that person you went to the house.
It's the next door neighbor of the person that we had been sitting outside of. So I was watching a door that was maybe 8 feet away, and that's 5 years after the fact. I don't know how you can put those things together. Anybody who's driven through DC knows there are hundreds of thousands of homes. The odds that these people would be right next to each other after all that time. And by the way, when I asked if I could go knock on the door and talk, the FBI pulled us in, and we never went back to that door again.
I'm not disputing that that's pretty wild. And the perception doesn't look good. The fact that she lived right there, right across the street from a person of interest. But my questions is, how do they get the gait analysis on her? You have to have two videos, one of one person walking, and then you have to use it. Why did they choose this girl to do the analysis with? Did they pick every Capitol Police officer and try to find one that matches? And then I guess my question would be, if you did that and you told a AI program to find which person in the Capitol Police has a gait match to this person, and the AI goes through all those gates and it's like, this person, like this is a 98%, like this one, like, but those are the only parameters. It only has, if it has to pick out of 5 people, well, my guess is that 98%, this 5th one is the closest one. Is it the closest one, or is it that person? I mean, I have a lot of questions on it. I guess I have too many questions than to post something like this and all the hyperbolic far-right news media taglines about her being guilty. I mean, that's a lot of personal information. Her shit's also scrubbed. They also keep saying that she works for the CIA. She's doing the exact same job since 2021 that she did for Capitol PD, but she's now doing it for the CIA. So if you know anything about how Capitol Police works, you are part of, you're part of the legislative branch. You fall under federal policing, and your jurisdiction is on campus. You are more like Secret Service than you are a cop. Matter of fact, all the Capitol PD guys I talk to, they have to have a suit and tie at work at all times. And they're in suit and tie almost as much, if not more, than they are in regular uniform in a lot of cases, because they do a lot of low profile stuff. So if you already are trained in that, you're already that kind of a mindset a cop, that you're on campus and you're more like a Secret Service security guard, it is not uncommon to transfer over and do the same thing on a CIA campus. So I don't know like that like saying that, oh, now she works at the CIA. I mean, it's crazy. I get it. Again, don't think it's crazy enough to accuse somebody of being the world, the America's work. Because in my opinion, whoever planted pipe bombs at the biggest event in our nation's history, that is the biggest terrorist. That's the biggest threat to national security. I would not want to be her being called the worst terrorist and the number one terrorist in the entire country, unless it's true. And from everybody I've talked to, they don't think it's possible. They don't think it's true at all. I would also have to, I would have to say is who's going to hire her? How are they going to hide this? What would be, how many people would have to be involved to want to cover her up or cover her ass up? You know, again, how did they find her? How do they know she would go along with it? Because here's another problem, right? This is, you know, when I'd say police departments, being that everybody is pretty much college graduate now, it's 50-50 where people stand politically. If I wanted to create some kind of vigilante scenario, there's, you know, out of the 700 cops I serve with, I'll tell you, there's not one cop I wouldn't think that I could go to and ask to do some shady vigilante shit. Like, let's just say I knew somebody was a terrible person and I want to do some vigilante shit on them. Bro, I don't trust any of the 700 that they would do that with me. Because they're all there for noble reasons. Somebody would tell on you. Like, there's like a 85% chance that whoever you ask is going to be like, not only am I not doing that, but I'm going to go tell somebody that you're thinking about doing it. So I don't know, like, coming from that perspective, like, I don't know, like, how they would just come in and talk to this girl who is not overtly politically left or right. She doesn't have any of these red flags, and they just are like, hey, do you want to put some pipe bombs out there for us? Again, maybe she did it, maybe she didn't. I think the point of my story today is that we treat every case objectively, and we try to give the benefit of the doubt in every scenario. I don't want to see any of the Failure to Stop fans falling for this utter hatred and crucifying this woman because she's guilty by social media, because she's guilty by independent journalists that have biases, that we are going off of circumstantial evidence that hasn't been tried and tested in court. I would not want to be deemed a terrorist and the nation's biggest threat based on forensic gate analysis that they don't even allow in court yet. I wouldn't even, you want to talk about having questions about a lie detector test. I mean, come on. The forensic gate analysis has got to be like even crazier. And we're not talking about like we have a footprint and the left footprint's deeper than the right, and they had surgery on their left leg and they've got a bunch of metal plates in their left leg and they walk with a limp. Like, we're not talking about that kind of evidence. We're talking about literally putting in videos. One of the videos that they matched up with her like 7 years ago in college, that they're matching up to that video. I mean, like, it's all again, I don't even want to downplay that their journalism is bad, because I don't know. It might be great journalism. They might be dialed in. They might be. But are we going to hate somebody and crucify them and find them guilty because they might be right? Because they might be wrong. And who's going to get sued? Or what's the repercussions? And that's my whole question with these other podcasters that are out there trying to, call somebody, say, you did not kill bin Laden. You don't know that, though. You weren't there. And you have multiple sides of the story, but at the end of the day, you don't know. And we're no longer talking in percentages. We're talking in absolutes. And that's where I have a problem. Because if you don't absolutely know, these are insane allegations to put on somebody if you don't know. This is, like, again, why I can't do FAWKES News, because I don't have the time to get it right. And I have a really hard time putting information out there. And I have put stuff out there that I was like, this looks right. Like the perception is real. Now I'm older, I'm a little bit wiser, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have said that back then. I would want the benefit of the doubt. And it's just because now I get to see, like a friend of mine who's being run through the gauntlet for cheating on his wife, and he didn't do it. He didn't cheat on his wife. That's not the whole story. That's not the story at all. But people talk as if they know him or if they know this person. I personally know him. I've heard the entire story. But anyway, that's where we're at on this, guys. I'll say this. Let's end it here. Here's the this is what I will say is an absolute. I do believe January 6th was an inside job. I'm not telling you that it was an inside job from Capitol Police or anything of the sort. And I think we do have to get to the bottom of it, but we cannot be so in a hurry to get to the bottom of it by doxing this police officer, this woman who I believe should be innocent until proven guilty. And if we look at it as innocent until proven guilty, then you have a woman who was a college athlete, who broke her leg, who came back from a broken leg, who tried out to be a Capitol Police officer, who went through the academy, who excelled at her job, who did a great job. And now they're trying to say she's the nation's biggest terrorist, which, by the way, remember the initial reports were that they thought that this was a black female, that all the evidence that we had months after J6 was that the woman who planned it, they were almost positive that it was a black female. Now, all of a sudden, we're confident that it's this white woman police officer. So you see how things are flipping and we don't really know. So before you go spewing hate about this woman, saying things like they should hang her and execute her, blah, 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 take a step back. Take a step back, because this is a woman who is a police officer who signed up to serve. She deserves, and every police officer and everybody in the whole, like everybody deserves to be innocent until proven guilty. Right? So, anyway, strange show today, strange breakdown. I wanted to get that out there because it was important to me, and I felt that it was important to me. Should have another Patreon up for you guys. Thanksgiving holiday is going to get pretty crazy. I think I'm shooting some content with Sam Kearns here pretty soon. Got some more stuff going on at Ranger Up, so continue to follow us over there, and have a wonderful weekend, guys. Guns up and giddy up.